What is going on, guys? It is Laser here with another weekend video analysis on NIO, our favorite stock on the stock market. Hope you guys are all doing great and having a wonderful weekend. The time right now is 9:50 a.m. for me. It's the morning in my last 2 weeks. And if you've seen my last 2 weeks videos, you would have heard my voice. I would be tired. I was trying to upload those videos on a Friday night. I usually like doing them Saturday mornings, but when my Saturday gets too jam-packed, I try and push them on Fridays. Today it's on Saturdays, so you'll get a little bit more of an energetic version of me today. If you're new here, we do one of these videos once per week. We do like to talk about, what's different. I think the way I try and do my analysis is I try and lean a little bit on my velocity divergences and pullbacks indicator. I will kind of talk briefly about that in this video. We'll talk a little bit about not just NIO, we'll talk about BABA, we'll talk about the Hang Seng index, and then we'll talk about Dixie and try and piece together where we see things going. There's a lot to uncover, but I wanted to start off by giving a quick shout out to Jamie on Twitter. Actually, Jamie is a very popular and vocal Twitter community member for the NIO community, and he's been a big time NIO bull. And he's come out and in the past has critically criticized some of my predictions in the past, rightfully so, because I was giving two different scenarios, and he felt that was unfair. I was trying to play both sides. But I did typically try and lean in one direction. Lately, I've been kind of leaning more in that one direction. And I'm not here to criticize Jamie for that. He had every right to, share his opinion. That's what Twitter is all about. Even YouTube, feel free to, drop a comment if you disagree with me. I want to hear why, but please be respectful. But again, I wanted to give him a shout out. I appreciate that. He did give me a shout out and said, he brought up a really important thing. And he talked about the 90-day cycle on NIO. How I think it was something, when did the 90 days hit? 90 days hit right around, and I'm not sure if I'm doing it exactly perfect. Actually, let's do the 24 hours. That's a cleaner window. 24 hours, or not 24, 90 days was right around on that day where we got that nice little spike. So we're at 90 days. There's a lot of good things that I like so far. Lots. There's a lot of good things that I like here so far. Number one, and if you missed my last week's video, we pretty much leaned very heavily on the velocity and divergence indicator. We broken right back above the 200-day moving average. This on the 24-hour time frame, that is a significant thing, because what you're going to start to notice here is, and as you look at this, and we talked about this last week, how and I'm using this arrow to kind of point and talk about it. When you get a lower low on the 200-day moving average, and this is just more of a recap. Some of you guys already know this, but when you get that lower low, you get kind of a shorter rally. And when you get that higher high, when you get a higher high, you get that bigger rally that kind of comes in, actually, which we saw happen right over here. Now, what's happening right now, this ended up being a lower low, and we had a shorter rally. This also ended up being a lower low. You kind of have to zoom in to see. And I'm pointing at this yellow line, if you guys don't know, the lower low. And of course, a short-lived rally, not necessarily what we were looking for. But here's the beauty of all this. What's actually forming here right now that we've actually cracked above the 200-day moving average on that velocity, what's going to happen, and we talked about this, we are now forming that higher low. And what I suspect is actually in the process right now, because we've seen it kind of give you a little bit of a dip, a little bit of a pullback. What I suspect is actually forming here is that first little pullback, and I should change that to white as I'm drawing this, before you get a big move. I suspect something like that is actually happening, and it's in the works. And now this is going to, the implications of this is absolutely huge. Now, I want to be clear here. The dip could be a little bit more exaggerated, and you can still get this higher low on the 200-day moving average. We could see NIO try and take out maybe the lows at 330. Maybe. I'm not saying, I don't actually see that happening, but it maybe. So it gives you more of an exaggerated low, but it still forms a higher low. It might even give you a bullish divergence right there if it takes out that low at 332, which, I mean, I know it sounds scary when you say 338, but that's like 20 cents, guys. Like one little wick, poof, get it out of the way. And you could get like that big move. Big move. So I think it's already in that process. You can see the last 3 days, it's coming down, and I think it's coming down just so it can go up way higher. And you can see in the blue lines here, 409 I have measured as a major level actually here. And I think that's coming. That's not going to be a matter of if it will hit. That's going to be a matter of when it will hit. And the question is, when it hits that, when we get that move, and it decides to kind of come up, what's going to make the deciding factor on this rally that kind of comes up and we test 409? The deciding factor is, are we going to overshoot it and get a pullback, which is what I'm expecting, because all the signs are pointing to that. You'll get that overshoot, that really big pop here, possibly take the highs out at 440. Maybe you get a run all the way up into 450. It takes the highs out, which is usually the best time, usually when you see pullbacks. We back test that 409 and reclaim that as support, and it takes off back into 550. And now, is it just going to hit 550, or are you going to get a blast through 550 and a reclaim, and we'll get that third push higher? They're both possible. And again, I've said this last week, we will cross that bridge when we get there. There's a lot of really good things going on here. Now, just so this chart doesn't get messy, I'm going to clear out this chart completely. We're going to do that by deleting the brushes. Start by deleting all the brushes. I'll leave the arrows. The arrows I do like. They're very useful. So that's the 24-hour time frame. Now, some of you guys might remember I talked about the 2-hour time frame. How could we find the bottom? And I talked about this, like, if you guys take a look, we bottomed right around here actually back in April and had a really nice run. And were we able to identify that bottom just by analyzing the velocity? Now, I have a thesis and a theory that when you get two breakouts, and there's a reason for that. I did explain that. Some of you guys may want to hear that explanation again, and I'll do it. I'll explain that again. And I think I use this illustration to explain it as well. But the way that works, typically when you have a stock that goes on a downtrend, like I did right over here, and this applies not only to indicators, but the actual stock, when you get a breakout, like we saw right over here, you often get consolidation that takes place. It's like the second, it's like you confirmed a breakout. There's your second, like, kind of like, this is where you're like, all right, I want to time, I want to get in. And that's when you pop, that's when you go. And what you'll notice as you look back down here into our indicator, we had the very first velocity break actually happen right here. And then it kind of broke. Now I could have actually said, all right, I'm going to go ahead and draw my second trend line here. And then you had that break. And this was our, basically, that was our this from a velocity perspective. And that's how you almost could have found the bottom. It would have gotten you confidently in NIO right at here before it's like, all right, you're buying NIO at the right time as it's ready to kind of rise back up actually. So how could we repeat this? So in order for a technical analysis strategy to be very effective, it needs to be repeatable on every single time frame, on every single, even right down to the minute, all the way to the 2-week time frame. You should be able to repeat this strategy over and over and over and over. And from what I've witnessed and what I've experienced, I believe this is something that you can repeat. Now, if we look at this current structure that we're in actually at the moment, and we look at our velocity, and I've talked about this, even before we got the break, I said, this is what I was looking for. Now, if you take a look, this was an exaggerated breakout. It was beautiful. Okay. This is your let's just label it. So too many arrows, by the way. Maybe some of you guys are not following because it's getting messy. So I'm going to start clearing some of this up. I always try and make sure I'm not too messy when I'm doing this. That was our first trend line break. And just for reference, so if you guys are watching along and you're looking to the left, so you guys know what you're looking for, that was your 2. What I'm looking for now, because this was our 1, I do believe it's forming our 2. Our 2 is just forming here. Now, because this made a higher high, it was like a higher high on that velocity. I think what we're going to see here, potentially going into next week, obviously you'll get that retest and maybe one more flush down, which I think is going to give us that on the 24 hours, that will give us our bullish divergence by taking out the lows at 330. I think that's a possibility. But the end of the light, at the end of the tunnel, there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel, because I think what you're eventually going to get is when it does that inversion, you're going to start getting that big move. You're going to start seeing this is in play right now. And we're going to start running. But when you go on the 24-hour time frame, when it's forming a potential higher low, I think it's going to be rather significant, rather explosive. And it's time for NIO. Everything is still lining up. Now, I said last week, I'm bullish. I'm getting very bullish. I am bullish. But remember, you guys, big moves can take a little bit of time. You know, how many people here right at this level stopped out? I remember very clearly on Twitter, and I was a little bit more active back then. I had some people come to me and said, I'm out at 320. They stopped out right here, right before it bounced right back and gave you that rally, actually. And this rally was short-lived. We knew it was going to be short-lived because it had a lower low on the 200-day moving average. We know this next rally is going to be significant. And I mean, I shouldn't say I know, because there is no guarantees, and I could be wrong, you know. But based off what I'm seeing here, a lot of beautiful things are actually forming. So again, I'm going to clear out all these drawings here. And go ahead and say, like, I am still bullish. I just think we need to be a little bit more patient. Yes, it hit the 3-month mark, but that 3-month mark, just so you guys are all aware, actually isn't exactly the 90 days. My theory came from, okay, switching it to a 2-week calendar. It was 7 candles on the 2-week time frame, which actually, if you do, I'm going to just remove all my drawings here. 7 candles. How many candles has that been? 7 candles, actually. So the bottom could have been in, and then the next most common time is 9 candles, which is roughly at the 4-month mark. So if it's not going to happen this month, there's a good chance that it's building up slowly, that you'll see that happen potentially next month, which is going to be July. And I talked about this. I talked about like a end of July, August run back here. Some of you guys remember when we had this run and we had this dropped off. I said, guys, like, you're going to want to wait until July. And I think we're finally getting that. Now, even when you look here at the 2 weeks, it looks to be forming and building, a higher low. So it looks good. But it's not exactly 90 days when I say it's 3 months. And I think this was a relatively shorter cycle. From the top here to the bottom, the 90-day cycle, by the way, didn't mean the run was going to start. That took us right up to this point, which was where it based. You know, you got some ups and downs. And it wasn't until around 100 and I guess you would say it didn't start until 106 days. Okay? And that was a relatively rather shorter downtrend. And it's funny because as you look at this structure, the structures are in a way very, very similar to me. They look similar in a certain sense here. And when you go and take a look over here, sorry, if I were to say, let's just say it's going to be the same, 106 days, just so you guys are managing your expectations. And even myself, it's important to manage your expectations. This run didn't reach this point until day 106. Day 106 brings us all the way into, so it's the end of the month, June 26th. So I hope that puts things into perspective, actually. And as you go back into some of the shorter cycles, actually, and I think this was one of the, let's see, I think this was another shorter cycle, which was one of the original ones. Let's see. Isn't that funny? 120 days right here. This was also one that was, I guess that would have been 4 months. 4 months. So it's between 3 and 4 months generally. Let's see, what's this one? 97. So we're close. Now, I'm not saying we're going to get one of these. I think we're going to get a much more significant move. A significant move is building up. And what I'm anticipating, by the way, is not one of these little ones, but one of these big ones that everybody was expecting here is now going to come right over here. I really got to blow my nose. One moment. All right, I'm back. I apologize. My nose was just, it needed to be low. I had to blow my nose. All right. I feel like I can talk more and more and more. Now, I will do this since it's I have a little bit of time because Saturday morning things are kind of like slower here. We will talk about like how we've still gotten this break. Am I in log scale? I'm in regular. Perfect. How you've gotten that break here. Now, I haven't done this in a bit just because it just adds so much more time, but we'll just go ahead and do this. Let's see, how does that look? Yeah, we're ready to, I think it's ready on the next move. The next big move, I want to see $4.50. Now, it might actually come down and swing and take out the lows at 330, potentially 328, and then give you that wick and then start going. But I want to see it come to 450, and I wanted to see it break above this. We're not even going to do this because if I start diving into parallel channel analysis and stacking it, this video will get way too long. So that'll be for another time. I just don't have time. This video's, I want to try and keep it like in a digestible format. We're going to quickly, that's pretty much my analysis. I think what you're going to potentially see here on the 24-hour time frame is you might get a little bit of a pop here. Now, just so that you're staying up to date, if we were using fibs, could see as high as 370 on the pop, 370, and potentially, actually, I don't know if it'll come that high. Maybe it'll come up to the 50, 370. You take the lows, and then boom, it goes. You might get something like that. Maybe. I don't know. I just know that run. I'm feeling really, really, really good about that. And if I had to compare where we were here to here, just so you guys are again on the same page, I think we're right around here. So we're like, you're like near this stage. You guys are near the end game of the bottom of this. This is your time to buy the dip, in my opinion. Not financial advice. Do your own due diligence. I could be totally wrong on this, but if I had to make a really good estimate, that's where we are within the bottom formation process, actually, if we were just comparing just to the last run here. Quickly diving into Baba here. It's no surprise. It's literally the exact same kind of setup here. You'll notice, actually, this is the drawings that I had last time. And it actually reached up to the top of that trend line here, found support on the mid channel here. But from a velocity perspective on the 2-hour time frame, there was your first break, I guess you can say. Yeah, you could argue this was your first break. That was your second break. You can argue that. And then it gave you a little bit of a lift here. But if you just wanted to, if you wanted to call this the first break, it's going to do the same thing. This is the last dip before it kind of goes boom. You're going to get a little bit of a rally, comes back down, and then it blasts, actually. So we got to, on the 24-hour time frame, how is that looking? See, that's interesting because if you look at Baba did make a lower low on that 200-day moving average and made that big explosive move. And what it's doing right now is it's actually forming a higher low. And I love to see that. And I know the Hang Seng, when we looked at that last time, it keeps forming higher highs and higher lows. And you know what it reminds me of right now? This reminds me of when the SPY, when it had this really big bear market and we were right around here. And I remember right around here, that's when like banks were like getting bank failures and people were like, it's going to come back down and it's going to crash. And it didn't. And it just decided to keep moving. It was just making higher highs, higher lows on the velocity. But we're not doing a SPY analysis today for this video. Now, Baba and obviously NIO are going to be tied to the Hang Seng index. So let's quickly pull that back up. Notice it's made a higher low on the velocity on the 24-hour time frame. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Break and a break. Yeah, it's about to explode. I think I called it last week and I said it's going to reach the top of that trend line. I mean, the longer it takes, the higher I think it goes. Now, if it really wants to come back down to the bottom of 23.2, it could, but I think we're going to come up and test 25. Ideally, you want it to see it blast above 25, maybe get 26. Give you a quick back test right over here into 25. Turn that into support, and off we go into 28, 29. That's the dream scenario here for the Hang Seng index. I think it could happen. Big moves like this are going to take time. It tried to actually do that right over here. And it just failed. Completely failed. Wasn't able to do that. Third time's a charm. It tried over here too to do that. You can see it tried once. It tried twice. Third time's perhaps going to be the charm here. So we're just going to have to just be patient. I'm very, very, very bullish on NIO. Even though, I mean, I can't say with confidence the bottom is totally in. And I wouldn't put it past like seeing 330. If I had to guess the exact bottom, I would say it would come exactly at what's the low here? It'll be 1 penny below this. 331. So that's my guess. 331. And I wouldn't freak out if it went like to 325 or, you know, came a slightly lower, but I'm going with that. I think if any institutions or smart money sees that, they're going to take it. I think anybody's going to want to see that. That's where I think it would be like amazing. And from a fib perspective, 333. Yeah, that's a beautiful. That's the 0.786. Yeah, sitting on the golden pocket. Yeah, I can see it kind of maybe just giving you that 1 wick lower. Maybe. Let's see. Where are we with our analysis? Hang Seng looks great. Higher high. You love to see it. You might still see a little bit more of a pullback, but I believe the highs are not in yet for the Hang Seng index. Now, finally wrapping up with the Dixie. Oh my goodness, so much brushes, paint brushes. Let's kind of clear out the paint brushes. Now you'll notice, again, we've reached the bottom here of our channel, and it's made this elongated. You see this elongated base, and it made lower lows. And here it made lower lows and an elongated base. We are, for the Dixie, in my honest opinion, right in here, right in this moment in time. It's basing. It's making a base here. And you're about to see a much bigger move higher. At the very least, I think we're going to go up and we're going to test 104. And if you go to the golden pocket, maybe even 105, potentially 110. And I talked about this in my previous videos, and you forget that when the Dixie made this really, really big move and it started to move up, that was also the start of when the Hang Seng index had a giant, one of its biggest and giant and fastest rallies ever. When it had this gigantic move, it made that simultaneously with the Dixie. When did this start? This literally started on September 10th, September 11th. You go here. What date were we at? September 10th. Okay, so it was basing. And it started to move up by the 30th. By the 30th, it still topped. So it reached the top, I guess, once the Dixie started taking off. So maybe we get some more basing. Then once it starts taking off, then Hang Seng will top. I don't know. I just know the timings were pretty good here. So that's where I'm going with the Hang Seng index. That wraps up pretty much my whole video. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, drop it in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer those questions regarding NIO. Again, I'm really very, very bullish on NIO, you guys. I think NIO's time is coming. The stars are aligning. I love that it actually broke above the 200-day moving average. And again, I think we could see it little bit teeter right below and take off the lows. And I'm guessing the lows might come exactly at 331. Give you a bullish divergence. It would look like this on the 24-hour time frame, and then we'd zoom and we'd go. There'd be some sort of catalyst, some sort of something, and it would go. Some sort of news in the pipeline. Probably they hit something. They hit their delivery numbers, or they make a partnership. It'll just be something, and it'll just run, and it'll just rally. I believe that. Now again, this could all be wrong too. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, please. Hope you enjoyed my video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you're new here. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend. Cheers.